Sheila Kaplan.
My cell phone, that's timed to 9 minutes. If you could just let me know, we'll hear it, and then just give me the 1 minute afterwards.
You can hold it, I'll let you know.
No, it makes me too nervous. You just do
Okay,
it.
fair enough.
Okay, and then just like, let me know. So I can finish. It totally throws me off if I have to look at it. So thank you very much. My voice is okay?
Yep.
Yes. First of all, I'm a mother of 3 children. I was on the school board in Newburgh, New York. I was vice president, and I never heard of FERPA. I never heard of FERPA until my oldest child went
Sheila,
to
am I
college.
supposed to start?
Oh, push
that?
start. Yes, thank you. Of course, I did say thank you very much. After I said thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invite. Now you can start. So I never heard of FERPA until my oldest child went to college, and I said, is he going to school? I said, well, we can't tell you that because of FERPA. That's not true. If your child is in college or 18, you do have access to their records if you claim them as a dependent. The second time I heard about FERPA was when my second child's education records were breached. And they sent me a letter, and I said, well, why would you collect information that you can't protect? That was my first conversation with EDUCAUSE, an absolutely fantastic organization that's primarily higher education. It wasn't until 2006, the fall of 2006, and that's 7+ years ago, that I received a phone call at my apartment in Manhattan. I moved to Manhattan, and a recording was telling me that my child was absent from PS something. And I hung up the phone and said, that's really bad. I never had any children in the New York City schools, but I know the name of the family who had this phone number before I did. If I wanted to find this child, because they kept calling the wrong numbers, if I wanted to find this child, I would not have a problem finding this child. There must be a law against this. So, of course, I went through New York City FOIL. I spoke to Robert Jackson. Spitzer was the governor then. Patterson was the LG. He said, if there is not a law, there will be a law. Okay, there still is no law. Then I called Joe Reidenberg very early. That name is probably familiar because of his 50-state longitudinal database study. And he said to me in 2006, I don't look at children's privacy, but keep looking at it because it's important. So I did. A couple of years later, I realized it was consumer protection. It may have been a little bit earlier that I went to Peter Appleby, who was still with Senate Education, and I said, Peter, look at this. And he said, Sheila, you found a hole. You found a hole in the federal law. And I started to cry because I hadn't wasted my time. So now I have Peter telling me, like, you're not wasting your time. Joel Reidenberg saying, take a look at this, keep looking at this. And then I came across this document, which was put out by the New York Senate. And it's cyber crimes against children. And I thought, for sure, there's something in there about directory information. Because Joel Reidenberg had said, mention domestic violence. Talk about domestic violence. There was nothing in there about it. But I did speak to Tony Helmer, who's one of the detectives, and worked with him for more than a year. And he said, Sheila, I have a file. It's not a matter of if there's going to be a discussion on this, it's when. So thank you. Finally, 7 years and maybe a week or so later, I am here talking about this. Now let me just jump because I know I'm running out of time. The opt-out that I'm going to be talking about is not the opt-out of testing. It's not the opt-out of data collection. I understand parents' concerns about opting out of testing. When my youngest child went to kindergarten in New York, they wanted to test her. And I said, you're not testing my child. If she's not ready, you'll let me know. The interesting part was I had 3 kids in 4 years, and I had never taught her nursery rhymes. So was she ready? She was, because on her own, she would go behind closed doors, and we'd have to open them on, like, all through the night, saying, "First time at this address, Rachel Stone," and she would, that was her stage name, and she would come in and she would make up rhymes. I just walked through the door before I was at the store, and that type of thing. So kids kind of developmentally know what they're supposed to be doing, which I really found that interesting. So now I know that the problem is about something related to consumer protection. How much time do I have?
I'm telling you, you told us we should.
Okay, right. Don't even tell me. Okay, so now I know it's consumer protection, so I went back to Joel Reidenberg and I said, "Oh, it's consumer protection. It wasn't children's privacy." He said, "No, it is children's privacy, and I'm doing a 50-state study." I said, "Oh, good. I don't have to look at directory information." And he said, "No, you still do." So I continued to look at it. Eventually, in the summer, May 29th of 2007, I was at a dinner with the late Senator Moorhan, and he said to me, "I want you in my office tomorrow." And I met with his staff, with Steve Powers. He said, "I want this to be one last thing to do." And I thought he meant before the Senate flipped. I did not realize he was ill. So Steve and I met over that summer, and we pretty much wrote the student privacy bill, or the directory information opt-out bill, that was S-2357 and A-8474. And the Senate did flip, and Senator Oppenheimer did sponsor that bill, and it passed the Senate 62-0, first time. Nothing from the Assembly. These school boards, it was interesting that they said, "Well, we're not going to oppose it, Sheila, because it's a federal issue." Fine. Now, the next year, it has a sponsor in the Assembly, and that's Assemblywoman Rosenthal. Well, now it's a local issue. I said, "A local issue? You had since 1974 to do something, and you haven't done anything." "Well, it's an unfunded mandate." I said, "It's a gift. If every state is going to have to hire someone to talk to their boards or their parents, the families, about student privacy, it's going to cost a lot of money." So that bill died. It did have an Assembly sponsor. It died. I hope one day you do look at the opposition to it, because it was not based on facts. So please look at it. It's a good bill. I redid it again. It's the Student Privacy Protection Act. Okay. Now, this bill that started out as the Student Privacy Protection Act has morphed into the Chief Privacy Officer for Education Act. And that is based on the past 7 years, and thanks to Lainey, of her attention to In Bloom, of waking up parents to the problem of data collection, that we need to have one. It's backed up by Joel Reidenberg, who did that 50-state study. He said that there should be a chief privacy officer in the state education agencies. So please take a look at that. That's in the package also. And Joel's testimony saying that we do need to have a chief privacy officer is also in there. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, I'm skipping over a lot because I know I'm running out of time, is if you were to ask me what's the one thing that we should do besides have opt-out and a chief privacy officer, we have to look at school safety. What happened in Tucson, Arizona, what happened at Virginia Tech, that's under FERPA. The U.S. Department of Education issued something in 2009 and 2011 again. I might have my years mixed up, saying that if a student is a hazard to oneself or other, they have no privacy. Interesting that I was looking at a blog by Stephen McDonald. He's a higher education school FERPA expert, which is higher education is lucky that they have the money to be able to hire consultants for that. I read on a blog, and someone at that same school, Pima Community College, said, "We need to know more about that because there's a problem." A year later, Gabby Giffords and other people were shot. They knew about the problem. Then a report came out from the U.S. Department of Education, the Department of Defense, and I always forget and the FBI, saying that 20% of student-related crime happens off. That was said at 9 minutes.
I know.
Okay.
Told me to tell you at 9 minutes.
Okay, 9 minutes, thanks. 20% of student-related crime happens off campus. So this is something we have to look at. Community colleges, I know this is lower education, but we still have these problems in elementary and secondary education. And I left out a lot. I hope that one day you do read through and perhaps call me and I can answer more questions.
I do have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You gave us bill language S5355. Does that include, it says K-12 Student Privacy and Cloud Computing Act. Does that include the Chief Privacy Officer for?
No, that's just a great bill. That's just another nice bill that I referred to in the testimony. The Chief Privacy Officer, I think it's probably exhibit number, I'm guessing, it's in there. It says.
There's no specific bill in place to cover.
No, it's a model. Same thing with the Student Privacy Protection Act.
Okay, thank you.
So one more last thing. I know I sound like everyone else doing this. I am like everyone else. Parents are concerned about vendors having access to their children's information, yet they're not opting out of directory information. There are 0 restrictions on directory information. They have the right already. We don't have to fight for that right. All we have to do is be informed of it. And thank you very much for allowing me an extra couple minutes.
Sheila, I know we interact with you quite frequently in our office, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that. I do
Hope so.
appreciate your patience and taking the time.
Thank you.
And you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
I don't know if I can say moving right along, but we are trying, so. You were good.
Thank you.
You want this back?
I don't care about privacy.
Okay.